Hey, what is going on, guys? I hope you all are doing well today. My name is Elliot and welcome back to another episode of The Fragrance Well. Today's topic of discussion is going to be floral fragrances for men. That's right, floral fragrances. Rose fragrances, other floral notes, things like tobacco, flower, not necessarily tobacco. Yeah, we're going to get into them today. Floral fragrances may not necessarily be something a lot of guys are comfortable with wearing or something that they necessarily like, but let me tell you right now, if it's something that you can get into and try out, it is a powerful addition to your fragrance arsenal. We're gonna talk about some of them right now. I got 8 today, 8 floral fragrances for men. All right, so let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. The first one is going to be coming from the house of Versace. This is Versace The Dreamer. Versace The Dreamer. This fragrance came out originally in 1996. Definitely not something you would expect to come out too much these days. And it's kind of a love it or hate it fragrance, particularly with the opening notes. It has some very bitter, kind of green-like notes in the opening that can be very polarizing, particularly juniper. Juniper is one of those things that you either like or you don't like, and it's very forward in this fragrance, so you know, it can be a little off-putting with the opening, but I would classify the fragrance as floral, sweet with an ambery dry down. Featured notes in this are tarragon, artemisia, juniper, iris, flax, lily, tobacco flower, and amber. This fragrance has been around for a while and it's still selling today. I don't know to what level it sells in terms of Versace sales. I'm pretty sure, you know, Eros is going to be at the top and maybe the Pour Homme line is kind of right underneath that in terms of men's fragrances. So this one, no telling what kind of numbers it's doing. You typically find it in discounter stores like Ross and TJ Maxx, but it's still going strong to this day, so people are still checking it out, and I think this is a really great fragrance. Very fresh and clean florals, a nice sweet touch to them. Like I said, there's a nice amber in the dry down. Once you get past those kind of bitter green notes in the top, that kind of smooths out a bit and it is just very floral, fresh, and clean with a nice sweetness to it. I enjoy wearing it. I get pretty good performance out of it actually too, maybe 6 to 8 hours. So this fragrance, I don't know if you can get samples of it, but if you can, probably do so because like I said, this one can be a little polarizing, but I think it's a great floral fragrance and a great addition to your fragrance arsenal if you want to have some floral fragrances, especially one that's not that expensive. Versace The Dreamer. All right, so this next one is coming from the house of Amouage. If you haven't already heard about this one, you will at some point being a part of the fragrance community. Reflection Man from Amouage. Amouage Reflection Man. Probably one of their most popular fragrances. I think originally released in 2007, been going strong ever since, and arguably one of the easier fragrances to wear in their collection, not including the newer releases, which are a little bit easier to wear, a little bit kind of a fresher, more citrusy kind of take on fragrances. They're not meant to be as challenging as some of the more classic Amouage fragrances. This one features bitter orange leaf, red pepper, rosemary, neroli, jasmine, iris, ylang ylang, sandalwood, cedarwood, patchouli, and vetiver. So I will classify this one as floral sweet with some aromatics in the top and a nice woody base. This fragrance here, man, it screams a man who is well put together. It screams class, elegance, almost CEO type status. This is almost kind of a bossy fragrance in my opinion. Very clean, love the aromatics in it, just a little bit of spice, a nice smooth floral sweetness to it. I would almost call it a very good introductory fragrance into what a floral fragrance for men can be. Sure, I'm sure there are plenty out there that are even easier to wear than this one, but when you think about what a floral fragrance can do in terms of when a man is wearing it, I think this one is a good entry-level fragrance that really gives you an idea of what that is like. Once again, from Amouage, this is Reflection Man. All right, so let's go from an easy floral fragrance to anything but an easy floral fragrance, a very polarizing floral fragrance that features the note of rose primarily, but has a lot of other spicy notes to go with it. From the house of Machino, this is Toy Boy. Machino Toy Boy. Heralded in the community as being a very high quality fragrance, but also very polarizing, and of course the bottle alone draws a lot of attention. This is a love it or hate it fragrance, if I'm being honest. As soon as I smelled it, I loved it. I thought it was a great quality designer release, but I knew it was not something that anybody everybody would like. This one is very polarizing. Features notes of pink pepper, pear, nutmeg, clove, LME resin, Italian bergamot, rose, cashmerean, flax blossom, magnolia, ambermax, cycloclide, and Haitian vetiver. So I would classify this fragrance as a very spicy but floral fragrance as well. The spices are extremely heavy in this, and there is a lot of rose blending with those spices to give it a very interesting take on a floral fragrance for men. A lot of people might see this, smell this and think that really it's a fragrance for women. I think with all those spices on the top, that's what kind of gives it the masculine edge to it, but I could understand their point of view, especially if you're not used to floral fragrances, or especially a strong rose fragrance like this. But to me, I wouldn't call this a masterpiece, but I would say this is a very well done designer release just to give you something different. But this one is definitely, if you want to take a bolder take on a man's floral fragrance. So not one you want to try out if you're trying to get into floral fragrances for men. Stay away from this one. Definitely try to sample this first. Do not blind buy this. This is not a safe blind buy. It's anything but. I do think it's not super expensive on discounters. So yeah, it might not hurt your wallet, but at the same time, why would you want to spend money on something that, you know, you ultimately hate, and then you got to deal with having it and you don't like it? And, you know, even if it is cheap, I would say definitely do some research and learn about what you like before you just go and get something just because it's something that's talked about and it's affordable. But great floral fragrance in my opinion. Moschino, Toy Boy. Definitely check it out first if you want to look into this one. Okay, so I mentioned the note of neroli earlier, so let's talk about a neroli fragrance. A fragrance that's actually my scent of the day today. This is coming from the house of Uden Bob. This is Memoires De Mustique. Memoires De Mustique from the house of Uden Bob. Uden Bob is a relatively well-known house if you're in the fragrance community, but this fragrance is probably not so much. Not one that's talked about a lot. It's kind of one that you know about it if you've experienced it, but this is a very neroli forward fragrance and features a lot of notes that you would find in the bitter orange tree. So it has a very orange-like vibe, but it's a floral fragrance done very much in the style of like a neroli portofino. If you've smelled neroli portofino or any fragrance similar to it, you're kind of getting the same thing from this. Featured notes are neroli, petitgrain, bergamot, orange blossom, osmanthus, jasmine sambac, white musk, amber, and precious woods. So again, this is a floral fragrance, but it's more so on the fresh side, more so on the fresh and invigorating side. It's a pleasant morning fragrance. It's a nice warm weather fragrance where you don't want something that's overly citrusy and aquatic. You want florals. That's what this fragrance is. Very neroli forward, so if you don't like neroli, this may not be the best option for you. The petitgrain mixes with that neroli to give it kind of that bitter orange kind of vibe, but not a whole lot of citruses in this, but it does smell a lot like orange, even though it's not a citrus fragrance. It's kind of a linear fragrance. As it kind of dries down, it kind of keeps the same type of vibe all the way through the life of the fragrance. Not a super performer, but it's not really intended to be. It's nice while it lasts, and then it kind of fades away slowly, and then it has a nice base to it that you can actually put on a fragrance on the evening on top of it without having to wash it off. That's what this type of fragrance is for. If you already have something kind of like neroli portofino, this might be a little redundant, to be honest. But if you don't, it's just another offering other than, say, a neroli portofino to give you that style of fragrance. So I just see it as an alternative that kind of does the same thing but in its own way. Once again, Memoires De Mustique from Uden Bob. Okay guys, so we are moving on, and this is going to be coming from the house of Xerjoff. This is one of my favorite floral fragrances in my collection. This is Uden Overdose. Uden Overdose from the house of Xerjoff. People are gonna, if they've ever smelled this one, they're gonna draw a comparison to this one from Versace the Dreamer. The similar note and why they would say that is because there's tobacco flower in this one as well, and it is very prominent in this fragrance, but there's other supporting notes that really make it go in its own direction. Featured notes are lemon, bergamot, ginger, tobacco flower, coffee, amber, and musk. So while I do consider this a floral fragrance, the citruses and the spiciness from the ginger in particular coming from this fragrance could make it be classified as something else, but like I said, the tobacco flower in this is very forward, so I consider it a floral fragrance. I think it wears like a floral fragrance. It just has other notes that make it a little bit more complex than maybe a simpler floral fragrance would be. especially when I think about what the Dreamer is. The Dreamer kind of stays, it's not extremely linear, but it stays relatively linear throughout the life of the fragrance. Well, this one has a little bit more movement, very fresh and citrusy off the top, but the later on you get the ginger kind of popping out a little bit more, so you get a little bit more of a spicy element, and the coffee mixes with that tobacco flower to give it kind of an earthy floral feel. And then you have a very nice amber base, amber and woodsy base with it. So the fragrance has a little bit more going on to it, but like I said, I still consider it a floral fragrance because to me, it gives me vibes of what a floral fragrance does, kind of a freshness to it, a cleanliness, if you will, even with those stronger supporting notes like the ginger and the coffee. Very nice fragrance from the House of Xerjoff. Definitely one of my favorite floral fragrances in my collection. Once again, this is Uden Overdose. Moving right along, I got another one from the House of Amouage, and this is a rose fragrance, and it is a beastly one. This is Lyric Man. Amouage Lyric Man. I call it the Rose Beast. I call it the beast mode men's fragrance, similar to what Delina is for women when it comes to rose fragrances. This one, yeah, just a jammy rose fragrance. It has other stuff going on as well, but it's all about the rose with this, and it is a beastly one. Listed notes are bergamot, lime, rose, angelica, galbanum, orange blossom, ginger, nutmeg, saffron, musk, pine, sandalwood, frankincense, and vanilla. So similar to Moschino's Toy Boy, this is a spicy floral fragrance with rose, but it is completely different. This one features a lot more warm and fresh spices like nutmeg and saffron. The lime in this in the opening just mixes with all of it so well. I really like it. When it dries down, you get a little bit more sweetness coming from like the vanilla and the amber, and you get kind of this green tinge coming from the pine that keeps it very masculine throughout the life of the fragrance. I think this is an absolute stunning fragrance. Not one that's talked about a whole lot from the House of Amouage. It's been out a while also, so maybe it used to be talked about, and since it's been out, just other things have come out and some of the hype has died down. But if you want a beast mode floral fragrance, particularly one that features the note of rose, you definitely are going to want to check this one out. It's still sold widely available today. If you happen to be at like a Neiman Marcus or a Bloomingdale's or a store that does have Amouage fragrances, there's a good chance they will have this one. I typically see it. They don't always have all of the Amouage fragrances available, but I do typically see this one. So get a sample of it, try it out. If you are into floral fragrances already as a man and you want something that is going to be a great arsenal, great addition to your arsenal in terms of your floral fragrances, this is definitely one I would recommend you check out. Once again, Lyric Man from Amouage. Okay, so we can't talk about floral fragrances without featuring at least one iris fragrance. This one's going to be coming from the House of Valentino. This is Valentino Uomo Intense. Valentino Uomo Intense. This one is done very much in the style of the Christian Dior style iris fragrance, and so this is Valentino's take on a fragrance like that. Powdery, rich, lipsticky kind of iris. So that's what this one features right here, making it a floral fragrance. Featured notes are clary sage, mandarin orange, iris, tonka bean, vanilla, and black leather. So along with the iris, you're gonna get a little bit of sweetness with the tonka bean and the vanilla, and then with the black leather note added in the dry down, you get a little bit more of a dark mysteriousness to this. The leather is not super forward, but it definitely can pick it up. It just adds another nuance to this fragrance. This fragrance is getting a lot harder to find, but it's not discontinued, so I'm not sure what's going on with it. But if you like that Dior Homme style iris, then you're definitely gonna wanna try to check this one out. Like I said, it is very similar, but it does do something a little bit different from Dior Homme. So if you're a fan, I think it's worth at least checking out. It may not necessarily be worth grabbing a bottle of it, especially if you can't find it for a good price. But that being said, I think a good solid iris fragrance that has some depth to it and maybe even a little bit of sweetness is a good addition to a floral fragrance arsenal in anybody's collection. Once again, this is Uomo Intense from Valentino. If you happen to be able to check it out at a department store, check it out first, because iris is not for everybody, but this is a solid release from the House of Valentino. Okay, and last but not least, this last one's gonna be coming from the House of Thameen London. This is Amber Room. Thameen London Amber Room. So this is an extrait de parfum, so I do believe out of the fragrance I've talked about today, this is the highest concentration fragrance. Oh, I love this fragrance. This one is going to be primarily spicy and floral with a nice ambery dry down, hence Amber Room in the name. Featured notes are ginger, bergamot, pink pepper, grapefruit, cardamom, rose, cinnamon, patchouli, amber, tonka bean, sandalwood, frankincense, and vetiver. So this one here is a very elegant and sophisticated scent, very complex, super high quality, very classy scent, very unisex as well. So this one, with all the spices and the supporting ambery notes and woodiness, makes it for a great amber fragrance first and foremost, but the rose in there is also very prominent, so it is a floral fragrance. What I like about this one is it gives you an idea of what a floral fragrance can be with a lot of complexity added to it. And even though it's not necessarily classified or thought of as a floral only fragrance, the florals play a strong role in supporting what the fragrance is trying to do. From what I've researched about this one, particularly before I got it, is it's very similar to Ombre Nuit from the House of Dior, done in a very similar style. So if you happen to have that fragrance already or have something very similar to it, this might be a redundant pickup for you. But even if you get a chance to just kind of check this one out with a sample, or you happen to be in a store that has it, I think it's worth checking out. It's a very well done fragrance. Even fragrances that are similar to other ones that I own or have smelled, I think it's worth checking them out, because you can see what did they do differently, did they do it better, you know how that goes, you know. Even if it's similar, doesn't necessarily mean you have to buy it, but you can check it out. Great pickup from this house, not one that's going to be talked about a lot. There's a lot of more popular fragrances coming out of this house that get talked about more, but I think this is a beautiful fragrance right here, and I had to pick it up when I had the chance. Amber Room from Thameen, London, another great floral fragrance, but also a great ambery fragrance. So if you like amber, this one might be worth looking into. All right, guys, that is gonna do it for today's video. That is 8 floral fragrances for men. I tried to kind of cover the gambit, if you will, have some fragrances that might appeal more to a beginner for floral fragrances, and also someone that are very complex and would appeal to someone who's a little bit more versed, if you will, in what a floral fragrance can do for your fragrance arsenal. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like the content. Leave a comment down below. Have you experienced any of these fragrances? Do you like them? Do you like floral fragrances? Are there some other ones you think could have been added to this list that maybe I don't have or didn't mention? I might have it and just left it out. Don't forget to like the video, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well.